Hey guys, so this is my second episode of Out of the Ashes, a Survivor's Story, and I received an email from an anonymous victim who is now a survivor, and she would like me to share her story. And I have not pre-read the story, so please bear with me as I read through it. Also, if you haven't already, please subscribe to my YouTube channel in order to get updates regarding Robbie, and also to follow more survivor stories, or just to follow my life and kind of the things that I do. I post some fun videos in between to just keep life simple and happy and upbeat so that I'm not always focusing on the negative. So, okay, so here is her story. It was a normal Thanksgiving at my grandmother's house. I had on a white dress and a little green poncho that my grandmother had knitted for me. I was so excited to get there and show everyone that I got to wear high heels for the very first time. This was a big deal because I was only 6 years old. They were these dainty white sandals with a slight lip on the heel, but nothing more than half an inch, I'm sure. I felt so grown up and mature and ladylike. I had helped my grandmother make the green bean casserole and then scurried off to play with all the kids until dinner was ready. Going into the playroom, I had passed a cousin who was playing a video game near the door and walked straight back to the bunk beds. My grandfather built them into the wall itself. They were special to the kids in the family. I got up onto the lower bunk bed and covered my laps in blankets to get cozy. I started playing with my Barbies when he walked in. He passed his sibling, my cousin, and came back to sit on the bed with me and play Barbies. It wasn't too long before he wanted to make a fort with me on the bed. He was 4 years older, so I let him do most of the work. I remember dilly-dallying with my Barbies, and as he carefully hung blanket after blanket from the top bunk to conceal us, to isolate me from the rest of our family. He wanted to play a different game now. It started with his hand on my leg. He was pulling on my pantyhose and snapping the fabric against my skin. Before long, his wandering hand settled on my waistband of my pantyhose. His sweaty, greedy hands were fumbling to get the tips of his fingers under the other side of that mesh. Every time his hands slipped, I prayed to God that in that moment somebody would crash our fort or pop in their head. I don't know what was happening yet, but I remember feeling uncomfortable and stiff as a rock. I prayed my mama would call us out to dinner. I prayed that his sister, who was 6 feet away, would hear something and interrupt this nightmare, but she didn't. Nobody did. I was told to keep quiet after I asked to go back to playing Barbies. He was doing things that hurt me. This torture went on for maybe 20 minutes before he was done using me. Nobody came for me that day. I was used until he was done using me. He ripped the blankets down from the top bunk, and suddenly my prison was a playroom again. A place that felt safe for me was now the place I was violated in secret. I slept between my grandparents every time I came over after that day, even if he wasn't there. Most times he was not there, but I was afraid my monster could trap me again with walls of fabric and hushed tones during another family gathering if I ever went into that room. I was glued to my grandmother's leg for the rest of the day. I pushed mashed potatoes around my plate for what felt like forever without taking any bites. I lost my appetite. My mom asked me why I wasn't very hungry and accused me of getting into sweets. He sat on the other side of the table, stuffing his face with rolls and butter. I couldn't make eye contact with him anymore, but I could feel every glance shot at me from across the table. When it was time to leave, I was the first one out of the house, even if it meant standing in the snow, waiting for the unending cycle of goodbyes between family. I stood inside the doorway and watched my parents hug him goodbye. A few days later, I remember sitting in the bath and hearing my mama and grandma laughing and talking in the kitchen. I still sat with that same empty pit in my stomach for days. The sound of laughter was painful. I felt like the world moved on without me. I got out of the bath and wrapped myself tight in a towel. My body was dripping wet as I walked, shaking, into the kitchen to tell my mother. Not because I wanted her to know, but because I felt sick and I needed to. I remember having to clarify who hurt me. He and his father shared the same name. My nightmare continued for 4 years after that day. Whispers, dark rooms, and the known safety of family was always near, but just out of my reach. It wasn't until I was 10 and we moved to California that I was finally free from the physical abuse. I'm such a jumpy person, it makes my father mad. He doesn't understand why I'm so on edge. Every time somebody enters a room unannounced or walks too quietly before entering my peripheral, my heart stops, or I jump and everybody laughs. If they only knew the little girl inside of me was panicking in fear of being pulled into another smaller dark space to be used again. If only they knew how much I struggle with letting friends and family touch me, much less an intimate partner. I was violated in a house I loved, surrounded by people I love. I was forced to keep quiet. I am now 21 years old, but when I talk about that day, I still cannot say in detail the ways that he hurt me. I do not know if it is the natural protective instinct I now have for children and wanting to protect that little girl and her story, or if it's because I feel like her still. I look at my body and all of these years later, I still wonder if it would look different had he not put his hands where his hands were not supposed to go. A body that my parents spent their whole lives protecting was nothing but a plaything for him that day. I feel damaged. I feel forgotten. I feel like it was my fault for not asking sooner what was done after I told my mother. It's too late now. How do I ask her what she did after I was molested? Does she even remember? How do I tell the woman who gave me life that I don't want it anymore? These are questions I have to live with and that I will die with. It is painful every day. Thank you for listening. I appreciate what you're doing for survivors. That is one survivor's story, and we share these stories so that perhaps someone will hear and make the decision to get help before they have victims. We share these stories as victims who became survivors so that we could take our power back, so that we can have our strength back. I want to say to this young woman, you have such courage and strength, and I admire your strength. You are none of those things that you question. You are not damaged. You are not forgotten. And I hope that sharing your story is helping you get your power back. You are beautiful, you were made perfectly, and you are loved. Thank you, everyone, for all of the love and support and for making this possible to bring her story to light so that she can have her power back. I cherish you all so much, and I appreciate the support, and together we can make a difference, and I hope that we continue to make a difference together. I just want to say thank you from my family and my little ones. We appreciate all the kindness and all of the nice things that we've read and all of the support and outreach. If you too are a survivor and you would like to share your story and have it read so that you can feel like you're getting your power back, please submit an email or find me on Facebook. I am happy to share, and as always, I will keep you anonymous. I definitely am all about female empowerment as well as individual empowerment. I feel like this is our job to build each other up, and I hope as commenters you can leave some encouraging words for this young lady so that she knows that she is not damaged and that she is not alone and that she is so loved. Let's build one another up and let's make a difference, and just remember every day to live a better life tomorrow than you did today. That's all we can do. Do all things with love and try to be kind always. Thanks for tuning in. If you haven't already, you can subscribe to my channel for more stories, and I love you all so much. Thank you for the support, and have a great night.